There are bridges, bridges in the sky. There is stone and steel and they are languages of letters, they are poetry and soul. They are understanding their they are languages of letters, they are poetry and law. They are love and understanding their letters and their there are canyons, they are yawning. They are rank and bitter anger, they are all they are fear and blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and sober-moving, their hopes over. They are fear and blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and sober-moving, their hopes over. Let us build a bridge of music and a strong stick of sun. Let us span another canyon, let us run. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're and bow today, we will tell them building bridges and we are on our way. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're off and bow today, we will tell them building bridges and we are on our way. We will tell them building.
We will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. Thank you, Bill Staines, for letting us use your Bridges song on Bridges program. Welcome to World Call-In. This is on Bridges programming. And we also call this Wednesday World Call-In because we get a lot of emails. And we haven't figured out the phone system yet, but we're getting there. With me is, I'm Jeff Beller. With me is Susan Comont to my right. And we have guests with us in the studio today, Jean and Suzanne, and Dennis is on the line. So we have a panel of 5 people today to discuss what Dennis will read for us. I'm going to let you meet these people. I don't know if you're online yet, Dennis, but you can now see who's there. And I think,
online.
Okay, that's great. Let's.
Well, I only see outside right now.
You will see. And it takes, what's a 10-second or a 20-second delay, I think, on the video.
Oh, good. Okay, I can see now. All 4 of you.
Look at that.
Okay, now there's supposed to be something here. I don't know what I'm going to do with this yet, but the way it's set up, I got a blank spot. But we'll maybe put some HRM stickers on there. Okay,
You had to upgrade them.
Dennis, why don't you read what Susan set up today so people can see it because it's not on the screen. Go
Actually,
ahead.
that would be a good idea to put
Thank you for writing.
What's that?
the summary.
The summaries we
Could
got.
go right in
Yeah,
here.
but you got to blow it up. You know.
Well,
Okay, here it is.
it's
Do
not
we
possible.
need to hear about more problems? Well, maybe we need most of all to think about and talk about possible solutions and directions that make sense in a humane way. DNM, basic needs met, not GDP, gross domestic product.
Hold on, would you repeat that, please?
What's that?
Would you repeat that last sentence?
Oh, DNM,
What does that stand for?
basic needs met,
Okay. Instead of what?
instead of GDP,
In our economic system. Great,
domestic product.
right.
How do we go forward with the goal of meeting basic needs?
Now, before the show is over, we're going to tell you what you could do. Action you can take without giving us money, without killing anybody, without doing anything that's just all you need to do. We're going to tell you how to do it, so stand by. Go ahead, Dennis.
That's all. That's all.
That's
in
it?
Summary, right?
Well, what do you think of that topic, Dennis?
Oh, I think that's very, very good and very well related to our usual topic.
Now, let me ask you a question. I know that you are a Donald Trump supporter. Is that true?
Well, you could either say Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton. Whoever loses should be the vice president. That's what I would
You
recommend.
mean you would make Donald Trump the vice president?
If he loses to, oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I meant Bernie Sanders.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
well, what about Donald Trump, Dennis?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Donald Trump. No, I had hope for him. When he first said he was going to run, I said, wow, imagine if you had a dysfunctional government.
We have a dysfunctional government.
Well, now you have a
Okay.
dysfunctional candidate, right?
That's it. Right. I was thinking,
What
wow,
one?
imagine if all politicians, whether you're left wing, right wing, Democrat, Republican, if they're all bought and paid for by the upper 1%, the richest, the most powerful people in this country, then Donald Trump is so rich, maybe he won't get bought and paid for.
Oh, no,
Then I
look.
heard it. Yeah.
Now you're saying the motto of the Club of Rome, we can't be corrupted because
Because
we're
we're too rich.
No, that doesn't work that way, you know. Unfortunately, they're just as corruptible and just as crazy about what they think
Well, look,
the outcomes of things should be.
Susie has an answer for this. What's your answer?
Give Donald Trump to any country that would take him.
Interestingly enough, he's so rich that he can't be bribed, but he's bribing, he can buy himself, you know, he can buy himself, he can actually, it's almost like a vicious circle. He's the only one that can corrupt himself with money.
Well, the thing
And the money has corrupted him. I mean, you know, and absolute power corrupts, and money, you know, absolute money also has that same effect. You're seeing the personality of someone who has never been said no to, you know. And if he is said no to, he doesn't believe it.
well, the
He
thing is,
doesn't
see, now,
think
here we are
he
giving
doesn't think it's
here we
applying
are
to him.
giving
There must be
all
something wrong
the
with the
time
people around him.
to Trump where we should be looking at Sanders and Clinton.
And what's happening now, we heard this morning, you know, with the Nevada primaries.
Right.
I assume he lost, right, to Hillary? She got the most delegates, right?
No,
He got the popular vote, or
Yeah,
what was the outcome of that?
I forgot which
Did you
state
hear
that
what
was.
the-
No, I'm sorry, we were driving.
Okay, so anyways, there was controversy though about how the delegates were awarded. And even if he did indeed win the popular vote, the delegates were already awarded.
Did she get super delegate?
Yes, they
So,
were
so,
back
She
in
got what?
February,
so
from
it's
what I
totally
understand.
corrupted.
So people got
Now-
very
now-
outraged, who were supporting Bernie, that, you know, I mean, this is, there's no popular input to this. Just like there's no popular input into who is becoming the Republican nominee
Well,
either.
there is now.
There
Just
is
the
not
popular-
until they're both the candidates, and then there's, you know, we get to
Well,
vote.
the
But
Republican
right now,
Party,
it's all
the
delegates and
Republican Party is
electoral.
very nervous. They didn't want Trump in there.
Yeah, but they
and-
didn't do much to
Well,
stop
they
him.
couldn't stop him because he got so much of the popular vote that it would fracture, it would fracture
It's
the
the
party.
same method that the Democrats use. They have delegates and super
The
delegates.
point
They
that-
are the ones
there's a-
that are deciding on the
There's a point
candidate,
I want to
not
make.
the popular
There's a
vote.
point I want to make. The point is that.
That's the point I wanted to
No,
make.
the point I'm making is that whether it's Republican or Democrat,
They're
the-
both behaving in the
the
same way.
economic system is controlling both of them. So
Well, that's
as somebody
true,
said
too.
to me today,
But that's another
we've got
level.
to take the lesser of the two evils, and I don't think that's the case anymore. I think if the people in this country, first of all, they're very upset and they're controlled by the media, and the media, you get this main media is totally controlling the system, and if the people are just dumb enough to believe the mainstream media, which they're starting to question now. Then you're going to wind up with a candidate such as Hillary Clinton or Donald
No,
Trump.
the people aren't dumb.
Well-
I disagree with the
well,
point, with the way you're going.
well,
Please let me express
go ahead.
myself. The people are not dumb. They are being manipulated. Yes, they're being fooled. They're being told that we have a democracy and that your vote means something. It may have at some point in our history as a country, but now it is totally controlled by and this is my opinion, by the electoral and superdelegate processes for both parties.
And who's controlling that?
No, we're not. The people are not
So
controlling
who's
that.
controlling that?
Well, the people that are empowered by the profit economic system and have created the laws so that in campaigns of this kind for any office, and this is for the presidency, the laws favor people with a great deal of money already. They have influence. They have the ability to buy the processes that make the laws, that create the attitudes of the government. This is a self-fulfilling clique has been created by our economic system.
Well,
yes,
okay,
by our
now-
economics as we practice
Saying
it.
that, this program is brought to you by the Human Renewable Energy Measure. That means that all human beings, anywhere in the world, we have to have an agreement that all humanity has to have their basic needs met. Once we have that social agreement, that's a socialized thing, then you can allow the free market to take over, because that means you can be as ambitious as possible. And Dennis, you're going to bring the word greed into this thing, I know.
What you're trying to
But
say is that the BNM, the basic needs met goal of an economic system will change this whole
Change the
dynamic.
whole dynamic.
Right.
And that
And
way,
right now we have a
and that way
profit
you have, we have a
motive.
profit margin. And the
motive.
belief system is just like any belief system is God, or it's, in this case, it's the almighty dollar, not almighty God or almighty nature, but it's the almighty dollar, and it's controlling all the delegates on both sides of the party. And you may get in someone lesser evil who's going to try to help humanity, or you may not.
We've had personal experience with this when you ran for Senate about 12, 15 years
Right.
ago. In the final selection of a candidate that's going to run for the office, it's all done with maneuvering
Behind
closed doors, conversations. I'll give you this, you help me with that. In the future we'll do this. If you do that,
I'll give you this job if you give me this.
It's completely a bargaining process, and
It's
it's
based on
totally out of
economics.
it, right?
Based
Totally
on
out of the hands
So,
of
and this was in the Independence Party.
right.
The same thing holds true
third
in much
party.
larger.
Every one of them functions in a
the
similar
same
way.
And it has no, in other parts of the world, you have proportional governments, where if someone runs on a certain party, that they get 10% of the elections.
Right, if they
They
have
would
that
have
kind of
10%. But
support.
we have winner take all in
Yeah.
a lot of the states, and specifically in the presidential and senatorial elections, it's winner take all. And unfortunately, that
And-
means the other parties are not represented.
Let's bring our guests into the conversation.
Gene, what do you want to do with this? I mean,
My thoughts on that is pretty much the same thoughts on your economic system, in the sense that you're correct about the proportional situation, in the sense that but that has to be brought down to the grass level in your states, in your local elections and everything. So it percolates from the bottom up, because that's where the real power is.
not top down.
Right.
I agree with you, and there was a time when someone said, well, you can't change anything unless you get to the top and then work your way, and then get involved with the way the process works. But the reality is, knowing what we know, where the big money makes the decisions, and we have, as Dennis called it, a dysfunctional government. And
You can get involved with the government, but it's going to demand a certain way of behavior
If you
on
don't-
your part, or you're just ejected
Now-
from it.
the reason why Trump is doing so well, in my opinion, is we're all entitled to our own ridiculous opinions. And the reason why he's doing so well is he is telling what everyone has on their mind, a certain truth. And the truth is that we have a dysfunctional government, and he's going to straighten it out.
And jobs have gone out of the country.
Out of the country, and well, a lot of people hear that, but he doesn't even want to have a minimum wage. He wants to drop the wage down. And now Bernie Sanders is saying the same thing. There's something wrong with our government, and we have to have it better than we have it now. So both the candidates, these and I call them fringe candidates, are saying there's something wrong with the government, which we all know. Dennis, you're saying the same thing. We need to reform the government. Is that right?
Yes, that's what I believe, yes.
But the thing is, to reform the government, campaign finance reform, it requires laws. And the people who are making the laws are the people who are really being controlled. So my point is, what are we going to do about that?
Yes, we definitely need to reform this if they get dysfunctional.
I don't.
Yeah.
Oh, well, anyway, I don't know if that's going to. How do you plan on doing that?
Well, when you mentioned about campaign finance reform, I
Yeah.
think that would really help. If we can
Who is going to
reform,
put the laws in?
well, that's why I said I had hope for Donald Trump when he said he was going to run, because he was so rich that maybe he would not get bought and paid for by the upper 1%. But then I heard him in those debates, and I said, no, I would never vote for him. He wants to send our troops over to these other countries, and I don't even think they should be over there now to where they are. So I would not vote for Donald Trump.
But the thing is, would it matter? Look, we last 8 years ago we voted for what's his name, Obama, right? And we had a lot of hope for that.
A
And
lot of people had hope.
and once they got into office, did it matter?
Well, you're right. He's not a dictator, so he can't do everything that he wants to do.
But Donald Trump would make him a great dictator, wouldn't he?
Well, he could probably buy, some of those senators or,
Maybe even the army, the generals. And he would be another Hitler, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be? So,
I don't see him willing to put that much effort into anything, because everything's always come easy to him. So what I see is that Donald Trump wants to go down in the history books as being a president, but he's going to step aside and let somebody else run the party. And it's going to be somebody like Cheney and that whole corrupt group that was with him.
well, they weren't really corrupt. They were just ambitious.
They were assholes. I'm sorry.
But weren't they just ambitious people?
Ambitious in a deviant way.
Well, look, most of the very wealthy people would say we need to wipe out a good portion of this population because we're unnecessary. A matter of fact, they're very wealthy, from what I can gather from a lot of the websites, which I don't know if I agree with. They call people who are normal people, like you and I know, useless eaters. And that's what they call us, useless eaters. I mean, serious. Cheney called us useless eaters. Another group called us useless eaters.
Who would Cheney have sent to war?
Well, the
useless
thing is,
eaters.
You know, there would never be a war if you control what people. You don't need people anymore. You use nuclear weaponry. You don't need it. You wipe out. You just go in there with drones and wipe people out.
But Cheney and his cohorts controlling, what was the Halliburton?
Yeah.
They can't make money if there's not people on the grounds using common weapons.
They don't.
They're in there for the money.
But they don't need. The thing is, they
And
have.
no, there's never enough
First
money.
of all,
There's never enough
first
money
of all, I got to ask you a question. What is money?
for them. It's
No,
power.
What is it? What is it? I mean, how do they? So they're controlling us using the money.
To some degree.
Well, no, to all degree.
Right.
Money is controlling everything,
It's
right?
everything.
So what's money?
It's an agreement. It's an agreement, but it's manipulated.
Is money gold?
It's the
Is
agreement
money
of
silver?
the value of something.
Well, money
But it
is something.
fluctuates.
It's just a
Faith
value.
system.
It's a basic system that people were willing to kill and work for,
Right.
waste their life on, their hours of their life. We all live, that's part of the HRM, we all live about 80 years of age.
Right.
We all need a certain amount of energy units for food and shelter. And we broke it down to money. And we say, well, you got to work minimum wage. Well, what should a minimum wage be? Is it a living wage? No, it's a minimum wage that someone else decided. So it's not a living wage. As a matter of fact, the best, and the only president in this country that ever said something that was positive about working people was, you know who that was? He was a Republican. You know what he said? He said, we do not need a minimum wage in this country. And they cut him off. And all the liberals picked up on that. Then his next breath was, we need a living wage in this country. You know which president that was?
No.
Richard Nixon.
Yeah.
Richard Nixon.
Well,
Now,
okay,
now-
how do we get to this point? You're talking
well,
about it.
I
You
think
let
when we get back to the political system in the sense that, like in some countries where they have parties that, well, first of all, they've taken the money out of the political system, and it's apportioned to the
Proportionate system.
to the different parties and how percentage of the electorate they get. So when you have a small party and it gains seats or it gains a certain percentage, then it gets more money the next time around, so that you always have.
But the problem is the money has in any country, the money has no value.
Yeah,
That's our problem.
has
It
a
still has an
fluctuating
impact though
value.
on what the parties
But
can
it-
do
but it's
to
not-
gain
But it's
support.
not based on anything. That's the problem.
Yes, well, you're talking about basing it on
You
something,
need to
and
base-
Gina's talking about what's going
Okay,
on.
the
in the present.
reality right now is it's based on a belief system that has no start point. In other words, if I said I want to go from point A to point B, or I want to get from this point, from where I am now to where I want to go, and if you don't know where you are, you can never get there.
And I understand that, but I see that in order to get to where you want to get, you're going to have to change the political system to some extent.
You can't. I mean, you can't change the political system because it's controlled by the economic system.
But somewhere along the line, you have to kind of graft that and cross one line with the
Well,
other so that something
here-
positive can happen.
Here's what happens.
That's right. That's
And
true.
this is where I bring this comment up all the time. There's certain realities that are here. Like we all know, if we don't eat, if we don't have 1 million calories of food a year, we will die. That's a fact.
Right.
1 million energy units of water a year, that's from evaporation, we will die. Human beings require fresh water and food, and they require a certain amount of shelter, and you can measure those in energy units. Those are factual things that can't be changed.
Physical things.
Physical things.
But you're, so you're saying
that
that this needs to be included in the way that we do our economics, and that's what the BNM basic needs
right,
met
basic needs met. Now,
is about. But how do you make
Now-
that, as Gene is trying to
we
say, how do you
can't-
make
we
that
know-
transition
we know
occur?
we can't do it through the way the process is what we're doing. This has been going on for years, for hundreds of years.
In this country,
this
the kind
country.
of government
And then
that we have.
and then before, and when this whole thing started.
We're just an imitation
when this
of England.
With this economic system started, before, when we were hunting, a matter of fact, Susan has been reading up on this, we're gonna do a show about this. When there was hunter-gatherers, the men were the hunters, and they worked about 1 day a week, and they had 6 days a week off.
They had a lot of free time.
The
The women had less free time, as we would understand.
The women
But
worked,
they worked about
the women
1
worked
day for every 3 days.
3 days a week.
No,
1 day for every 3 days, so
Right,
every third
they
day. They had 2 days off every third day. And they, and
gee,
that-
that's kind of my schedule.
but that's every third day, not every week. So right now, the average person in this world is working tremendous amount of more time, except for the very wealthy. We can call them the 1%. I don't know. if
They're
that's
living
right.
like hunter-gatherers.
They're living more better than hunter-gatherers,
Well, I don't know.
but even those people are working to keep their power in the structure. Now, the problem I see is that
So you're just saying pre-economics, there was a different kind of
Now,
agreement.
once we had.
Well, the point though that you were,
Let me finish.
but you didn't
No,
finish your point.
I'm trying to, you won't let me.
No, I mean,
you
why
won't
did you
let me.
bring up the
I'm
hunter-gatherers?
gonna get there. So then, once we started getting excess with the hunter-gatherers, once we get excess with the hunter-gatherers, we had a few people in the tribe who didn't really wanna do much. But they were strong, so we said, look, we've got a lot of excess, and there's people up there who want our excess. So you've got to protect us. So the guy says, well, I can't do it alone. There's, 50 of them. So we'll give you 5 guys and you're strong. We'll give you some clubs and you protect us. So, and we're going to call you a king. here's your army. And this went along fine. And the people in different locations had kings because they named them kings. And they gave them their food, and they gave them that was their job to protect us.
So then you have armies and you have power brokers, is what you're saying. People who
right, and then
exert their power
and then what happened?
through violence.
And then what happened after? And then what happened after that? Unfortunately, I didn't shut this down.
But there was another side
No,
to
I
that.
gotta finish. And then right after that, once that came about, then the kings would fight to get territory to control the economy. And after that, the kings realized they're killing their sisters and their brothers and their cousins. Wait a second, let's get together and call ourselves the United Kingdom. Lo and behold, you've heard of that. And then and then after a few years of calling themselves the United Kingdom, they realized that this didn't sound good to the population, so let's call them Great Britain. And that was still a little strong. Well, let's call ourselves England. And then we'll take that stupid bunch of people who want to leave us and we'll send them over to the new land, which we will dictate how big the properties are going to be by our kings, right? And we'll dictate how big the properties are going to be. And that's where we are to this day. And we still have people fighting over trying to control the economy, which controls us, so the people in power can still be powerful, which was your statement. Now, the only way to change it, now I'm going to go back to where I come from. Everything worked out pretty well before we had excess. Now we've got more technology and some tremendous amount of excess, a tremendous amount of people, and some people say we have an overpopulation problem. I don't know. I'm not qualified. Some scientists say that. I have to agree with the people who study anthropology, who spent their life studying it, people who study this, but there's no such someone who calls himself an economist, because that's mumbo jumbo. It's like somebody calling himself a priest or a religious fanatic.
Well, because you're saying that
because there's no base. There's no base for the economy.
Is fiat economy or
so going back
subjective.
to the simplest possible denomination is we all know these are in science, right? People who study this, we need a certain amount of energy units for food, shelter. And we all know that the more education we can have. So education should be, as far as a human being wants to learn, it should be open to that person because we'll have a better society. Now that's a communistic view. So we have a little bit of a communistic view on the education portion. We have a socialistic view on where our social agreement has to be. And then we can allow the free market to take over so people who are ambitious can do more. And there's no reason in this world, if you're willing to cut more wood or you're willing to build more homes, you shouldn't have more than a person who doesn't want to do that. So you have there's your capitalistic view. And if you have a social agreement that you're not hurting anybody because of the agreement that every human being has to have their education, food, and shelter from 1 hour of their life's work a day or 1 day a week.
Okay, now let's go back to what you were trying to make that connection with the hunter-gatherers. We knew this then.
Back then.
Before agriculture and the settled groups that you just described, becoming kingdoms ultimately because people wanted to control those fertile areas.
Now, Gene said, how do we get there? He thinks we can get there. He says, can we get there? It has to be some political. I don't believe that. I think it can happen politically because that's already controlled. The same way the military is controlled. You can't overthrow anybody. Those days are gone. The system is so well oiled and balanced negatively toward the population. How do we change it? Here's what you could do. If you agree that all humanity has to have their basic needs met, and that's how we judge the economy, how well a country not does GDP, how much money they can make, but how they do
fulfill the basic
needs met.
Worldwide, we're talking
on a
about.
Worldwide basis, we will then change the economic system.
Now, there's some countries that are trying to do this, but you need it on a worldwide.
We need to get a name Before you, now we get back to gravity. Gravity's been here forever. But just 400 years ago, that's nothing.
You named it.
We named it and we still don't understand it, by the way, but we named it and we measured it and we know what velocity is and impact is and all kinds of stuff because of gravity and trajectory and shipping things to outer space. But 400 years is nothing. We've been around millions of years. I'm saying to you, this is the time when you can go ahead and say, we need to put this name in the vocabulary,
And in the
in every
economics.
language around the world. That's why we try to do this on air, not independently. And then we have people who are doing it in Indonesia. We have people doing it in India now. They're talking about basic need met. The HREM, the Human Renewable Energy Measure. Go to your churches or go to your wherever you go, your bar. Talk at your dinner table, our basic needs met, has to be met. And once we get that
Expressed in the economic system.
in the economic system,
Right.
and that's the way we have to change the economic system, and that'll come from the bottom up. Then your politicians become functional. The economic system
Because their
becomes
goal is
functional.
not profit or garnering a favor with people who have profit.
It's no
But
longer
let's-
based right.
We have guests today, and I don't
I just
want
wanted
to
to
miss
get
the
that- I just
opportunity.
wanted-
I know you got it out. It's definitely, you made your point.
Do you think that a great percentage of the population is too apathetic to
That's how we start our show.
pursue?
Fear and
Wait,
blind
wait,
suspicion.
But the thing is that,
How do you inspire them?
well, this is the thing, you're getting
Right,
a
but you're saying,
reaction.
but you're saying
From
like go into your churches, which, or go into your bars, or go into the library, go into whatever.
Or
At
talk
the
about
dinner
it
table.
within your, from the bottom, you sit down at a dinner table, you say, we got a lot of problems
Your
here.
own
You know,
family.
that damn Trump and that damn Clinton and that damn Bernie, they're a bunch of, whoa, yeah, you may be right. You can spend your whole life complaining about something, but what's missing?
Right.
What's missing is a basic understanding that all humanity around the world has to have their basic needs met. And once you understand the basic needs are met, whether you're a Jew or a Christian or a Muslim, whatever you are, your basic needs are going to be met. So you're not going to fight anybody. You got to do well. You got to
changes
do
the
well.
dynamic between people who have differences, different
Look,
religions.
I have people who
Because you're emphasizing the similarities between us
Right.
all, right? But the thing is when you're saying the apathy, it is something that is being created by the repetition of the problems over the radios, the TV, the ways that we communicate with each other. We're always hearing, like right now during the presidential campaign, once again, the abortion issue, the transvestite gay issue.
Personal issues
These are always the same ones that come up.
every time. Just like Christmas.
Just a minute.
They come
I
up with
wanna
the
make-
stores and the
right.
stores with
There
all
are
this stuff for Christmas.
Every seasonal
Every
thing of
6
this
years,
nature
4 years.
has its own subject, and this is deliberate. It's to keep people going in circles about an issue that cannot be
And a false,
any real.
and a false sense.
Will you let
Go
me
ahead,
speak?
go ahead.
That can't be resolved.
Yes, and or it's something that
Should be
doesn't
in the
matter.
political
You know,
should be
like
in the political realm.
and-
Anyway, it
Right.
should be personal
Right,
and used
Right,
as a
exactly.
personal thing.
right. I mean, it's a non-issue what they keep emphasizing with the transvestites now, because we all, every transgender or whatever,
Well,
everyone in their private home has a bathroom that everybody uses. I mean, this is not something that
This is
we
an economic
completely
problem. We can
Right.
easily put in
bogus.
one bathroom and you have a choice.
that's
If you're not
true.
sure which
I
gender
mean-
you are going to offend someone, use the one that's single stall.
This was something that what came up from what I've read when they were
But that's another,
before they were
but
the
that's,
Equal Rights Amendment was put into our Constitution. There were all kinds of aggressive rejection of it on the basis that, well, what's going to happen now? We're going to have separate bathrooms, for men and women. And it became an issue, that about bathrooms then. There were bathroom issues back then, and then of course we did get bathrooms for men and women. But, why? It doesn't really matter. I mean, you could have had unisex bathrooms from the very, very beginning. It doesn't, I mean, you go into it's a non-issue, and we're being asked to go around in circles about it.
For no reason. I mean,
And this is
it keeps
how
your mind
this beats
off
people
the
down.
economy.
Returning to your why, this beats down people's ability to get out of these cul-de-sacs and then realize the larger picture of what is really affecting them every single day of their lives. Not these issues that are brought up during campaigns or during holidays or whatever. It's the issues, the overarching issue that's affecting you every day, your work day, how much time you're putting into just supplying what you need to live, or for your family to live, how much of your life you're committing to that. And then if you look, for more than 1 million years, our species was hunter-gatherers who had the agreement that we're talking about, that people pitch in according to their own abilities, but once things are gathered, once meat is brought in, it's all shared equally. Because they knew
basic needs are
that
shared.
if they didn't do that, their tribe would not survive, or their group. They had to, even though, and we had all the different personalities, people who were lazy, people who were good hunters, people who were not, and everyone in between. But they knew that if they didn't supply what everyone needed to survive, if they could, then the whole group was threatened. And that's what we're experiencing now. We're a group that's threatened on the level of
Well, the species is
the
also.
whole, yeah, we're going to either be able to come to some agreement, as a species, like we had for millions of years. We've only been doing what we're doing for maybe 8,000 years, as far as the settled communities and agriculture and the ways that we've had to evolve laws and social agreements that.
So actually,
Yeah.
we need to get over our different ethnicities
Yeah.
in order to become a global community to perpetuate our species further into the future, because if we don't, we're all going to die right here.
Right.
True. We have lost some, somewhere in the excitement of evolving as agrarian, and this is one of the biggest changes that occurred. Was our shift from hunter-gatherer to agrarian. We left behind this obvious thing that we have to take care of each other.
The simple concept.
We can now
Right.
express it as a measurement because we all can
We
understand
know it
that.
now. We understand. First time
But
in history.
before, it was like a no-brainer for people. I mean, if you don't take care of everyone, if all the good hunters get killed by an antelope, a buffalo or
Well,
something,
you didn't teach people not to eat
then
that
you
poison.
just got what you got back at the village, and they have to then take over. And somebody who may have been lazy then is motivated to become, a good hunter. You just never know, what potential people have until they're asked to, to step up.
So the way,
And they understood that. People understand, and we understand it now, but we don't value it like we did then, because it's not as immediate, it's not as obvious to everyone, just like gravity, as you're always making that that comparison.
we now can put a measurement in place. First, we got to name it, and that has to be around the dinner table.
But
and then once it gets around the dinner table, then mainstream media will pick it up a little bit, and then someone else will pick up on it, and then all of a sudden, some genius will write a thesis on it, get a Pulitzer Prize. It won't be the average person
you
who's
mean
thinking about
a
it.
Nobel Peace
A
Prize.
Nobel Peace, or some kind of a prize, and then all of a sudden, wow, we got this new
But that's
measurement.
the way that we communicate that, we feel something significant.
And that, but the only way we can do this is if each
If people
individual,
start talking
if
about
each
it.
individual talks about, get the name, the HRAM or something facsimile, a basic needs met measurement based on science, not subjective thought. Everything we do that subjectively is subject to interpretation, but something that is measured, like if I told you that I'm going to make a law that the sun isn't coming up tomorrow, you would say, make all the laws you want.
Or that you won't starve.
Or that you won't starve, you only had 2 calories a day,
Right.
or that you're going to live
But
to
is the-
150
actually,
years of age.
That law is in effect, that you won't starve if you don't get, your calories each day. That law is already in effect by default of, by
But
the
like-
behavior of our economic system.
But it's making you work your life away.
Some people can work, can't even get work, or
Right.
can't even,
But the system, if it falls down, society say we're going to help you somehow, and a lot of people say, well, then that's the Darwinism, which is ridiculous. But it's not Darwin. We've always had
social
empathy,
Darwinism.
for people who are hurt. That's a normal function of humanity. If we have apathy that we can't do anything about it, those two words are very close, and it's interesting to see them because people think, well, I can't do anything about it, and then there's a false hope, like we're playing a shell game. If you vote for the right person, we can change the world. What's
And
that?
then
And I
that
used
is
to
our
believe that.
participation. But
Sorry,
that participation, people are coming to realize
It's
is
not
not
working.
significant.
so therefore, and you can't just vote it in because that gives you, I've done my job, I voted. Well, that you could vote on a budget for your local school, which
That'll probably take.
that won't matter because if you don't have people who want to spend that kind of money to fix the school up, it probably won't get fixed up. But then again, we're back to the economic system again.
And whatever stress they feel,
If I want to see a nice
on
school
their
in my
taxes
town,
rates.
we as a system should print money like Ithaca dollars that say to build the school. Right? We just print money out. Of course, $22 million to fix the school. So we print $22 million of paper money up to fix the school. That money gets distributed amongst the contractors and the food stores. The minute that dollar bill hits the bank, it gets destroyed.
So that you don't get inflation.
Now you don't have inflation,
Right.
but you physically have the building in place. Wow. You want solar panels on all the houses in the country. Dennis, you want solar panels on all the roofs, right?
Dennis wants solar panels on all the roofs.
Okay, now, so we say solar panel money, like my little phony $20 bill, solar panel money. And there's a little barcode on it. And I give it to my solar guys. And they put solar panels on my roof. And then they go to the supermarket and buy what they want. You can't put that money in the bank. It's only to do physical things. The minute that hits the bank, it's destroyed. It's
Nobody can then
it can't
parlay
make money on
into
money.
stocks
The biggest
and money
inflation
on
maker
money.
we have is the stock market.
Right.
And the reason why the greenback dollar during Lincoln's day,
These are the
days
games that the
made so
rich
much
can
money,
play.
is
Right.
it was made to do physical changes in the society. It never made money on money.
And it was interesting because one of the candidates said, oh, we can just print the money to pay our debt. Well, that is actually what Lincoln did, but he did it for a specific purpose.
Physical
the war.
things.
He wanted money for,
To buy equipment.
to wage a war.
And it worked. It worked.
Yeah.
This country never did so
But-
well in the history of the country because he just printed money to do something physical. He didn't print money to make money on money, which does nothing. Now
Now, I don't know if when
Well,
this,
at
yeah,
one
go
time,
ahead.
at one time, the railroads were allowed to print their own money too. There was a lot of people printing their own money in up until a certain period. I don't know which time before the federal government stopped them and only said that you could only have federal money. But I don't know when it was. But the railroads.
Wilson.
that was Wilson.
Around that
Wilson let the banks, as a matter of fact, Wilson said this in
central bank.
said that he let the central banks come in. He said, I just killed this country by allowing the central banks in. They got their foot in the door. And Wilson, right after his candidacy, he's quoted as saying, that was the biggest mistake I could have made to the United. It was the end of the country once we let the banking system in.
Right.
And that was the banking system from England he let in. And that's, if you go to Zeitgeist moving forward on that particular documentary, you will see that. And it's not only that, you can look
But
it
the
up. You can
point
look it up.
about printing more money, it has to be printed for specific purposes
Right.
and then destroyed by the bank, as you say, when it finally gets back to the bank, after people have
But
been
you
able
need
to use it
physical needs.
for their needs.
Physical needs, not to make
Go-
money on money.
Go ahead.
Well, let me play the devil's advocate here.
Sure.
Let's get back to the herm. What happens that, let's say it's put in place and it takes over? So what does the society look like after that?
That nobody can, we can only
You can
imagine,
imagine what it looks like.
but you cannot predict, because there's always unpredictables
Mo-
whenever there's a major change of this
Most
kind.
people, look
There's
at it this
never
way.
a way that
Suppose-
anyone can.
Suppose everybody worked 1 day a week.
But logically, wait, may I address
Yeah.
what Jean, because I know you want to go to your next.
Right.
But anyway, there isn't, if you're making a decision amongst everyone that our economics needs to have at its core and as its purpose, the provision of basic needs for everyone on the planet, that in itself is a more beneficial agreement than, okay, let's see who can make the most profit and pit everybody against each other. Economic
Competition.
agreement. Now, if you have at the core one or the other, this one's gonna create different interactions among people than the one over here that is just profit motive and who can get the most power through the, hoarding.
It's
and
not
stuff.
based on
Do you
power.
see what I'm saying?
No,
But I cannot predict, how's the world gonna look, but I think it'll look better. than
As a matter of fact,
yeah.
it may be, in my opinion, it may be, we're not talking about wants men.
We're talking about needs.
Men. Now, wants is what makes us all human and different. It's like the snowflake. Every snowflake's exactly the same. However, there's a little difference.
Well, they look like they are.
They look like
from
they're
a
the same,
distance, but they're
but
not.
they're all, matter of fact, From a Distance is a great song. But we're all, in other words, I work my 1 day a week for my basic needs met, but I decide I want to buy a camper. Well,
You still
I
have
really
the free
want to
market.
buy that camper. How much is it going to cost me? Well, are you willing to work 20 days for the camper, or 100 more days, or 1,000 more days? It's still going to be an economic system that'll work the same way that's working now, but no one's going to die because of it.
And no one
No
can,
one's going to be hungry ever. No one's going to ever want to fight with wars to take
unless
this
you
natural
choose
resources.
to be outside.
There'll be some crazy people, but in most cases, the human world will work. And as a matter of fact, the best example of this, and the best way I've ever seen it work, as far as imagination goes, is Jacques Fresco's The Resource-Based Economy, because there's enough natural resources out here. If we share them,
on Buckminster
and he based that on Bucky
work
Fuller.
too, and
We're
then
in
it goes
one
back to other
planet,
people.
that's a Bucky Fuller idea. And of course, Frisco doesn't credit Fuller.
No.
So the competition is immediately there. But the thing is, it doesn't matter. This is what we have. We're facing what we're dealing with now. And we're facing what maybe if we can change the basic needs rather than gross domestic product. And it's that simple. It's just a simple wording change that will in turn put a measurement into the economic system, which will physically change the system the way it stands now.
Because one way the economics is working for the people, and the other way the economics is
It's a machine
it's a
working for
machine
itself.
working actually for itself. Because profit has no.
It has no
has
feeling.
no humanity,
It's
right.
not built in. So we're just saying, let's just base it on physical needs met for lifespan. And the lifespan is 80 years of age, within a reason. In some countries, it's less because the economics isn't right. In some cases, if you're very wealthy, you live to 120, 112. But what kind of a quality of life do you have after you're 80? So 80 is the good number that we can go through science. Now we go to the next phase. Dennis, do you agree with that or what? You're not saying a word here.
Well, I want to say a couple words if I can, because I was just going to ask Susie and Jean, do you think that there were countries that tried to do this before we had, I won't say now communism, but back before World War II and World War I, when they started socialism over in Europe, did we do the right thing to send our troops over there? Or were they just trying to do what we're talking about now, to reform things if they got dysfunction?
Well, you're talking about, yeah, larger,
Well, right now I have a point of reference in the sense that I'm reading about
History of cotton.
the history of cotton and how it kind of started capitalism because it was a global
Commodity.
commodity that they
traded globally.
traded around the world with. They used slaves and they used in the English capital. They called it war capital in the beginning. The only reason I'm bringing this up is because in some countries they tried to create the plantation system like in India because they had been growing cotton there before, but they couldn't because they couldn't convert the people over to that state of mind because they were so basically more
The slave state of mind.
yeah, well, not so much the slave state to go to work and get paid and everything, and do that as opposed to work on your own little farm
Right.
and make your own goods and services to some extent.
Mhm. And
within
then
the
just trade
community.
for whatever you needed that was
No,
extra.
with
But
that,
let
go
you
ahead.
complete.
But what happened was, you know, the world outpaced that type of thinking. So now, just to bring that into perspective, then you had the large capitalism running amok by the turn of the 18th century, the 19th century, or 20th century, basically. And so that's when we got back to socialism, which is kind of a form of what we're talking about now, because we need a little social interaction between all the human beings on the planet now, as opposed to just states.
Mhm. And there is the potential of that because we can communicate with the internet now.
Dennis's question.
Most places in the
Dennis's
world.
The
question.
question was,
Dennis's question
were we
was,
wrong to go in and
well,
stop
the
it?
thing is, first of all, Dennis is
Experiment.
going back just a couple of hundred years, not even, Second World War. First and Second World War, which is what, and what happened with that was the economic system was controlling the world at that point.
Right.
The First World War screwed over Germany, which brought Hitler to power. Economics, like Clinton said, it's all about the economy, stupid. As Clinton said, and that's what we're talking about now. The economic
That was
system's
Bill
collapsing.
Clinton, not
Bill
Hillary.
Clinton saying. And then, but Dennis is only going back to the First World War, then the Second World War, and they wanted to bring some kind of socialism in, but we didn't go in there to knock out the socialism. We went in there because
Hitler was
Hitler
exterminating people.
because he felt he was doing the right thing, because he wanted to make sure he gets rid of the 1%ers, but he was part of the 1%ers again. So you're not going back far enough, Dennis, by what 100 years ago. That's already we've been contaminated by that point. We've been contaminated for the past 5,000 years. So if you want to go back 5,000 years ago, I can tell you this: we did the wrong thing by letting the economic system come about without a measurement to help humanity.
Without the basic needs
the basic needs met. So all the economic system must put into place the basic needs to help humanity. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense, but I do think that not just Hitler, World War II, even before World War I,
Right.
I really think there were countries over there like Italy and Germany that just wanted to do something very similar to what you're talking about now.
But they didn't. They weren't able to. Like a lot of people say that to me. You don't need a measurement. All you need to do is just do it. Well, how do you measure what you need for basics?
Well, we're actually saying that the reason these countries that were trying to do it, as you say, Dennis, could not continue to do it, to provide what everyone needed in their country, was because they had the pressures, the economic pressures around those countries and the other countries around them that didn't want to do that. We're creating a situation where it was becoming less possible. The Scandinavian countries, they still are holding the high ground, for providing for their citizens. And these are small countries. I mean, we're talking about very small countries, but they're doing it. But they're very highly pressured also at this time from the global economic system that their citizens are not as comfortable as they used to be, but they're still better off than people who are now refugees from Syria and Africa and various countries under stress. They know that that's where they want to go. They know that these countries that have made strides in that direction are the ones where they want to end up, because they will, have a chance there. And this knowledge that it has disseminated so quickly, in less than, let's say, 5 years, the Syrian crisis has been going on for about 5 years now, but there were others before that. That this knowledge is disseminated so quickly and is because of our communications with the phones, with our the information is out there for people to take advantage of, and they're looking for the countries that will treat them fairly.
So that's why people are going to. But
Yeah.
the reality is that
But
the
now
economic system
those
is
countries
controlled
are overwhelmed
because they're part of the economic system,
with
which
refugees.
has no value. I'm not saying we shouldn't use money, Dennis. I'm saying that we've always had to use some form of gold, silver, something that we believed in. But what the reality is that if you go to physics, the physics will say all humanity has to have their basic needs met.
Let's go back to
And that's
our guests, Jeff.
okay. You see where I'm going with that? The basic needs met and the physics. Gene?
Well, yeah, I see it. But I don't want to bring up another situation that I don't. What I'm thinking is that if we actually achieve this goal, aren't we going to perpetuate the population even more than what it is now?
No,
The first
because
key-
the education is a huge
The first thing, and
key to
the
population
first
control.
thing we talk about in the HRM, the primary thing, is not food. It's not shelter. It's education, food, and shelter. So once people have the ability to educate themselves, and they know that their food and shelter is secured, the first thing they want to do is have free time. They don't want to have children over and above what they can take care of. They want to take them on a camping
Well,
trip.
the motivation.
And they can't take 8 kids on a camping trip. It's too much work. They'll take 1 kid, and they have to work more than their basic needs. So all of a sudden, you've got this whole different education process. Primarily, education will change. People will see how many kids they can have. This happened
So
in
you
China.
think it will have an impact on the what some scientists perceive as an overpopulation problem?
Of course.
Well, it's actually been studies about why a woman, well, there's also religious implications here, because a lot of religions don't allow birth control.
Birth control.
But if a woman has a choice and she will, if she has the assurance that medically she will probably be able to bring 1 or 2 children to adulthood, she will not keep having children over and over and over again. A lot of motivation.
If the religious views
Yes,
allow
there are
it,
still
then the only thing would
restricted.
be abstinence.
But
You can't
if you
convince-
have more education, you have a lessening of the and education of the women and girls, not just the boys and men. You have a potential there for
Education is the key.
changes in the religion also, and
Right, education.
right,
And that's
exactly.
happening now with even the Pope is talking
And
about
even the migrations now into Europe, there's going to be changes. People are concerned that many of the migrants are Muslims, but they'll come into the Europe and there will be a blending like we've had in this country. A lot of people came here with lots of different religions, and we've had over the last 200 and more years quite an interesting blending of all of the immigrants that have come here with their various religions. That will happen in Europe.
that. Thank you all for listening. We're running out
It
of time.
ain't easy, but it happens.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Gene. Thank you, Suzanne. And thank you, Sue. And thank you all for listening. Don't forget, keep on emailing us. And we're all entitled to their own stupid opinions. Thank you very much. Bye now.
I have lots of opinions.
We can get our energy from corn and grass and trees. Even trash converts to biofuels. Break loose from the stranglehold of oil companies. Renewables can fuel the world. We're here to spread the news of energy, energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone? Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy.